The PC release of Forbidden West drops in March, and is one of my 3 most anticipated games of 2024. While awaiting its release, I wanted to take a look back at one of the best games ever made. You can praise Horizon Zero Dawn for its graphics, world building, production design, story, lore, writing, or acting.
Just what I wanted to hear.
It's among the best of any open-world game by any of those metrics. But within those metrics, there are many other games that are just as good. Some people will even say better, because that's how opinions work. But by the metric of combat, I submit that Horizon Zero Dawn is the best game ever made. If you want to play a great melee game, you don't reach for Zero Dawn. If you want to play a great stealth game, you don't reach for Zero Dawn. If you want to play a great ranged combat game, you don't... No, actually, I think a strong case could be made for Horizon Zero Dawn. But Horizon doesn't just incorporate elements of stealth, melee, and ranged combat. It also has various trap mechanics and includes a few of its own additions, all its own. The enemies in Horizon Zero Dawn are so unique, they need their own section. But first, stealth. If you want to earn 100 points with me, include stealth and silent takedowns as part of your gameplay.
Take a break, you aren't...
Now, the stealth mechanics in Zero Dawn don't go beyond the bare minimum. Aloy can hide in tall grass with red spikelets. Yeah, that's right. I looked that up. From there, she can whistle to draw an enemy close, where she can perform a critical and silent takedown. She can throw stones to draw attention away from her position. Crouching, wearing stealth clothing, and equipping weaves will reduce her detectability even more. In the skill tree, Silent Drop, Low Profile, and Quiet Sprint also boost non-detection. But none of those skills or the outfits add any new mechanics. They're all just boring stat boosts. In the melee camp, even I was dismissive of Horizon Zero Dawn's melee options on first consideration. Light hit, heavy hit. Done. Wow, you really burned out neurons coming up with that arsenal, didn't you, Gorilla? I'll include Aloy's evasion options as part of the melee medley, making it instantly superior to Skyrim. But once all skills are unlocked, the melee toolbox expands quite a bit. I mean, most of these shouldn't even be unlocks in the first place, but here we are. Silent Strike is a critical, one-hitting small machines and damaging larger ones. It's often used after luring machines to Aloy's position when crouched in tall red-headed grass, or anytime the target is unaware of Aloy. This move can also be executed from a slide, which, you know, feels cool. Strike from above enables a critical strike on a drop attack. Strike from below, I never used. Leader Strike just applies the critical one-hit to heavy bandits, on loan from Far Cry, I'm guessing. Critical hit can be used on stunned machines. And the best one, Dismount Strike, letting Aloy essentially do a drop attack from a mount. Truly the best of the melee unlocks, and the only reason you'll unlock the machine repair skills. The rest are lame stat boosts. Strong Strike Plus, just add 15 and 30% more damage to the silent, above, below, and leader strikes. Precision and Precision Plus increase the likelihood of knocking off armor and components with normal swings. Knockdown increases the likelihood of stunning a machine from a heavy attack, and Fighting Back increases damage to heavy swings as Aloy's health gets low. So, Aloy's melee abilities are basically swing, heavy swing, and a bunch of criticals from various openings. The core of Horizon Zero Dawn's combat is in the ranged combat. And here the game omits its most important missing feature, guns. Removing guns from combat is a stroke of genius. Keeping the weapons ancient slows the combat, granting time to react, but also makes open combat an option. Games with guns, if they're at all realistic, turn into cover shooters. But Zero Dawn allows for ranged and melee combat in the same battle, where both can be used interchangeably, and as long as you're not standing still, the battle can be managed really quickly. You've got the Hunter Bow, that fires normal, fire, and hardpoint arrows. The Sharpshot Bow, which fires Harvest, Precision, and Tear Blast arrows. The War Bow, which fires Shock, Freeze, and Corruption arrows. The Sling fires Shock, Freeze, and Fire bombs, which have less range but hit harder than their arrow counterparts. The Blast Sling fires Blast, Sticky, and Proximity bombs. The Tear Blaster blows parts off of machines from close range, and if you skipped it, you're missing out on a powerful close-quarters weapon. Now, contrary to what I said earlier, there are guns in the game, such as the Deathbringer gun, the Fire Spitter, and the Thunderjaw's disc launcher, to name a few. But they all have limited magazines and can't be reloaded. And when carried, Aloy can only shuffle. They must be dropped to access any of her equipped weapons and when dodge rolling. So using these guns is rare and fleeting, making their use a fun, albeit brief, power play. Also, the only way to get one is by taking it from its wielder. At this point, I need to point out the Ropecaster, which occupies a weapon slot, but is more utilitarian than harmful. It fires harpoons which anchor a machine to the ground for a time, especially useful when dealing with a bunch of large machines, and you'd really rather only deal with one at a time. It's just super cool that the game includes something like that. For simplicity, I'm going to skip the weapons that came with the Frozen Wilds DLC. And the Rattler. Related to stealth are what I'm calling ambush weapons. These are traps that can be set in the path of patrolling machines. Shock traps. Blast traps, which do fire damage, and detonating blast traps, which pack more of a bang. Then there's the Tripcaster, which creates a tripwire in the same varieties as the traps: shock, blast, and fire. The Tripcaster has 3 advantages over the traps. Because the anchors are launched from a bow, they can be set from a distance. Not a great distance, but a distance nevertheless. Being a tripwire, the trigger area is larger and not restricted to the ground. And finally, triggering a tripwire causes more damage than a trap. But since the game gives them all to you, you don't really have to choose. Use all of them. In addition to that, Aloy can also learn to override machines. Every machine up to the Thunderjaw and Fireclaw. Overriding a machine turns it friendly, and it will now attack anything hostile to Aloy. There's a cooldown on override, so it's rare that you'll override a bunch of machines and have them finish the battle for you. But having a tenacious machine by your side can really make a difference in a tough fight. If for no other reason than it can split the attention of your enemy. Corrupted and demonic machines cannot be overridden, lest you attempt to override your way to success. Speaking of corruption, there are corruption arrows, which have a temporary berserk effect, turning a machine hostile to everything including other machines, best used from a distance. The limiting factor here is metal burn, harvested from corrupted machines, and the primary ingredient for crafting corruption arrows. You can't finish the game with corruption arrows because metal burn isn't all that common. Also, what fun is that? All that is plenty of variety for tromping around the map and hunting machines and bandits in an array of approaches. But there's a final element that sets Horizon Zero Dawn apart from other games: the machines themselves. While most games give enemies hit points and critical zones, usually the head,
End of the line!
Horizon Zero Dawn takes it a lot further. Take the Shellwalker. Overall, it doesn't have any elemental weaknesses, and it's especially resistant to shock, so don't attack it with electricity. Its 2 arms wield a mounted shield generator and a lightning cannon. I usually go for the shield generator first. But if you want to raid the container on its back, you should detach it by shooting the crate holder, or it will be destroyed with the machine when you finish it off. Well, not worth it this time. The Freeze Bellowback is weak to fire, but is particularly vulnerable in the chest and back. Rupturing those will freeze anything in the vicinity, meaning double damage while the status effect is active. The Stalker is nasty. It cloaks, fires a really fast dart, and launches mines. But it's weak to electric attacks. And the cloak, dart, and mine components can be shot off. On Glinthawks, I always use fire. The Thunderjaw has no elemental weaknesses and is resistant to shock attacks. It has a radar for detecting Aloy if it's alerted to her, and nasty rocket launchers. It also has front-mounted cannons flanking its head, and it can melee with its tail. It also has a heart, which if hit, is a critical, but the panel protecting it must be removed. The tail, front guns, rocket launchers, and radar can all be shot off. I go for the rockets first. And so on. With every machine in the game, each has special attacks or abilities. each has strengths and weaknesses, and the larger ones have components that can be shot off, and sometimes those components can be used in battle. Putting it all together, here's an area patrolled by 3 Ravagers, tough cat-like machines with a shoulder-mounted cannon. I don't need to take them on, but I'm going to. Note, I'm playing on very hard, but also using the game's best equipment. Let's start with the stealth approach. Throw the rock to distract the Ravager. Sneak by, whistle to call it over, hopefully to a place where his friends won't hear. Silent strike. Heavy swing with a knockdown, followed by a critical hit. Dodge. Another critical. And oh crap, his friends heard me anyway. Rope caster to tie him down. Summon my mount. Dismount strike on the Ravager. Attacking bound machines kind of unties them, so back to the rope caster. Back to the mount. And another dismount strike, this time on a watcher. Enough of that. How about some ambush tactics? These are detonating blast tripwires launched from the tripcaster. A tear blast arrow to blow off his gun, piss him off and make sure he can't attack me from a distance. Note to self, don't stand next to detonating tripwires. Down goes number 2 and 3. And there's a tripwire left I can put back in the ammo pouch. Let's go again. Tear blast that gun again. Ooh. Okay, I know Ravagers are especially vulnerable to fire. Here you can see this Ravager's HP ticking away as it burns. Ouch. Out comes the Tear Blaster. Notice the Ravager's cannon, which I just shot off. Still got the cannon. That's 2 Ravagers and a Sawtooth down. And the cannon's ammo is spent. This fight's pretty much over. Now, Ravagers are not particularly vulnerable to shock attacks, but if you hit the power cells with shock, it stuns them. Then you can do whatever, like hit them with precision arrows. You could attack first with freeze damage, and follow that up with precision arrows. Blast sling firing sticky bombs. And the last one got him. Blast sling firing regular bombs. And we'll just finish things up with another heavy strike. This time I'm going to override one of the Ravagers. That ought to piss him off. 2 down. 3 down. Good kitty. If you think I've missed a critical combat tip, then you've also missed the point. This is not a combat tutorial. I haven't shown even half the machines. There are weapons I've skipped, and I'm sure players have discovered tactics I haven't tried. What I'm trying to demonstrate is the diversity in this game. Diversity of weapons, machines, vulnerabilities, strengths, approaches, and playstyles. And I'm not recommending any playstyle in particular. Actually, I'd recommend experimenting with all playstyles, and even try to invent new ones. It seems obvious to me that Horizon Zero Dawn was a bottom-up development process, where the game mechanics are developed first, and then story and characters are tailored to fit the mechanics. This is confirmed in a GDC talk by Eric Bulchis, lead designer at Guerrilla Games, where he shows that the development team had refined combat, open world, and player abilities, all before they had any idea what the story would be. In top-down development, the narrative and characters are developed first, and then they try to turn it into a game, such as in The Witcher 3, which has great characters and stories and an abundance of cutscenes, but the gameplay bored me. And often, there wasn't any gameplay at all. I've stated before, if the gameplay is great, I'm okay with a mediocre story. But Horizon's story is really good. And if you argue Aloy is a bit stoic, I'm sorry, but I couldn't hear you over the sound of Am I saying Horizon Zero Dawn is the best open-world game ever made? Yes. Yes, I am. Am I saying Horizon Zero Dawn is
practically perfect in every way?
Absolutely not. The climbing system is pretty lame, but it's no worse than what most games are doing. For as much as I defended the melee combat, light and heavy swings are still too basic to be interesting. Quests where the focus is used to track down people are lame. There's no game or creativity in following a pre-laid out path. The Witcher 3 did the same crap, and it was lame there too. And the skill tree is one of the most uninspired in all of gaming, unlocking things that are just basic abilities that the developers just decided to lock behind an unlock. For example, under the category of shouldn't even be upgrades, the Lure Call and Silent Strike are just basic stealth mechanics. Strike from above, the ability to disarm and reuse traps, the ability to remove weaves and coils from outfits and weapons, and the ability to pick flowers from a mount. None of these should be unlocks. These 5, I never used. These 5 just make the game less annoying, like being able to walk faster with heavy weapons and expanding your inventory to still not enough. These 19 are just passive buffs on stuff you're already doing, like better loot drops and longer concentration. Actually great ideas for upgrades. Hunter reflexes, letting you jump and slide to slow time while aiming. Concentration, a zoom in and time slow while aiming. Dodge prowess, giving you an optional long dodge roll. Critical hit on stunned machines. Double shot and triple shot are awesome player-executed abilities. Call Mount Plus, where summoning your mount means it arrives even when you haven't overridden one. Shard Salvager, being able to convert junk into shards for half the value in the field is a great offset for the insufficient inventory slots. And my favorite, Dismount Strike.
Coming through.
I look forward to seeing how Forbidden West does it. I look forward to seeing how it does a lot of things. Anyway, if you're in it for the branching story paths, romance options, puzzles, or traversal challenges, Horizon Zero Dawn is not that kind of game. Nevertheless, the story and the unfolding of what happened to the old ones is riveting. The characters are likable and expertly voiced.
You're smart.
Visually, it's astonishing and gorgeous to look at and unlike anything I've experienced in another game. But without its amazing combat, I wouldn't care. I wouldn't play it a second time, and I'd resent it for wasting my time in the first place.
So Horizon is built on the notion that the player has multiple solutions to tackle specific problems like the robots. The whole point of Horizon is that we wanted to let you choose which solution you thought was most interesting. There are effectively no perfect solutions.
And that's why Horizon Zero Dawn is my favorite open-world game ever. Thanks for watching.